So what we're saying is if we have to stage a heist.
Yes.
Sure, Nick, sure. Stage a heist to steal a book that hasn't been printed yet.
Yes.
Correctly with the correct amount.
D20 Radio, where gamers roll.
www.d20radio.com.
Welcome back to the How We Roll Gaming podcast, everybody. Hope you are having an awesome time. Nick, Robert, welcome. I hope the two of you are staying cool when, as one of the local weather guys has said, the gates of hell are open here.
Oh, I'm keeping
I'm-
cool.
I'm always cool, but yeah, it's getting a bit toasty outside.
I've got a
Yeah.
good 73 up here. Got a fan blowing. I'm good.
I went to see the Odyssey Tuesday night, and that was the first time that I had stepped outside of the house since getting home from Nick's on Saturday. It was so hot. No.
I had to go in. I had an on-site week, so I had to go in.
Oh.
But we are recording this episode as GenCon 2026 is going on, and we don't often toss a lot of gaming news at the top of our episodes, but this one, it's appropriate for the topic we're going to be talking about today, and it's also related to a game near and dear to our heart. But in Wizards of the Coast D&D presentation, they announced their Universes Beyond entries for 2027, including Star Wars. And it sparked a brief firestorm online about whether or not Edge Studio had lost the license. Was it going back to
Firestorm,
Wizards?
a complete meltdown on some areas.
Yes. But it was like
Another
is
side of the
Edge
apocalypse in others.
But it was like, is Edge losing the license? Is the license going back to Wizards? Was the sky falling? All of that stuff. And
Yes.
as it turns out, because of course Edge was there at Gen Con too, and Sam Gregor Stewart himself, the RPG director for Edge Studio, was like, point of order, we still have the license.
It was all like, calm down, everybody. Calm down.
The Universes Beyond thing is the same as WotC does for Magic the Gathering. And Universes Beyond is what they've been doing with Magic, where they have other IPs that they cross over with Magic.
Which isn't the first. They did a specifically a specific like one shot starter set for based off one episode of Rick and Morty one time. They've done things like this before.
Yeah, they did the Stranger Things starter box. That all of the documentation was like in universe from Stranger Things. It was supposed to be like Eddie's DM's guide, even though it was 5th edition. It was Eddie's DM guide with his notes and stuff like that. But they've got World of Warcraft, they've got Star Wars that they're going to be doing in this one, and it looks like they're doing them more or less quarterly, and each of them is being called Season of blank, and the Star Wars is Season of Rebellion. And what that has typically been is it's been one or two products, and then they dip and they move on.
Which again, not a bad idea, especially because you could literally go to just about any forum talking about D&D. It's like, how do I reskin this into D&D?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Or just the dice system.
And, D&D is
mainstream.
It's mainstream. It is a lot of new players' entry point because of
the
being
mainstream.
that brand identification, because of Stranger Things. When Stranger Things came out and they were playing D&D, D&D sales spiked. And I remember seeing a video that Bob Worldbuilder did where he tracked D&D sales, and they would spike every time a new season of Stranger Things came out.
Like the greatest
And
irony of the Satanic Panic was it put D&D on the lips of most people who didn't know what D&D was.
yeah. And
Everyone
they
was scared
also
about their kids, and all these the most scariest people of all, nerds hanging out.
well, and he also noticed that D&D YouTube would spike whenever a new season of Stranger Things came out, because the new players coming into the game were seeking out informational content about the game.
Now there are things like Foxbuck and Lawrence game shows and live plays of mostly D&D are hugely popular.
But one of the takeaways that I've gotten from the reaction to the news is that there is still a huge audience for the Edge Star Wars role-playing game. And
Oh yeah,
they
that's
want new content.
Yes,
I've
we
never
very
seen
much
the
want new content.
I've never seen the Star Wars RPG board so animated after this, because they were in like DEF CON, like what's going on?
I mean, what did you say, Daryl, when Sam's like, we're not losing it? People were like, then do something with it.
Yes, because so in discussions on the D20 Radio Discord, plug for our home network, GM Phil of the Order 66 podcast pointed out that the last book that was published, not counting the reprints, was 2020. It's been 6 years. Now, I do I
A
let's
lot
also
happened in 2 years. In
Let's
those
apply
2 years.
context.
yeah, we're going to apply some context here. And this is probably the longest.
That's very difficult.
This is probably the longest, pre main topic intro that we've done, but it's still on topic for what we're talking about. December 2019, parent company Asmodee just completely cuts the PG group. No notice, no public statements, nothing, just RPG group gone. The closest thing to a public statement was from one of the writers over in FFG's fiction line posting on social media saying RPG development is not currently in FFG's current plans, or something to that effect.
Not
Nothing,
necessarily
no word.
Not necessarily a death sentence in this space, but then things happen.
Yeah, so it created a run on every game line that they had. People were panic buying. I was panic buying because at the time I was first picking up a few Legend of the Five Rings books here and there. But at this point, I started panic buying every time I had the extra cash. I was buying another Legend of the Five Rings book because I didn't know if they were going to come again. And I bought my Legend of the Five Rings dice then. It took 6 years, 5 years, 6 years to actually play it when you started your game, Robert. But
yes, and it was only recently that I was able to get my own 5-ring dice.
So I panic buying. People were panic buying the Star Wars dice and Genesis dice, every book and accessory that they could get their hands on, because as far as anyone knew, that was the end. So then May 10th, 2020 at Gamma is when it was publicly, not even really announced, it was just publicly stated that they were restructuring, and each of their imprint studios was going to have a specific type of game that they were going to work on. Whereas before, each studio had a scattering of different game types that they worked on. Like Fantasy Flight had RPGs and tabletop board games and tabletop miniature games and card
And card
games.
games.
So they restructured. FFG was assigned tabletop board games and card games. Atomic Mass Games got all of the miniature games. And Edge Studio, which had been their European translation and distribution arm for everything, became the RPG studio. Notice the date that I gave there, though. That was May 10th, 2020. What happened to the world in the next couple of weeks?
A certain quarantine.
Yeah.
The world shut down, effectively.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Which, on the one hand, was good for a great many RPGs that were already in development and were capable of shipping out on the time. Not for one when...
In other areas.
When you're totally restructuring your gaming company.
Kind of not good to have a viral outbreak.
So, June of 2020 is when they announced that they had rehired Sam Gregor Stewart, the former RPG director of FFG, to fulfill that same role for Edge. So, great continuity of leadership. Sam's an awesome guy. Sam is a great RPG developer. But what none of us knew at that time and didn't know for another year and a half is the transfer. It wasn't as easy as saying, okay, we've restructured corporate at a corporate level. As Asmodee, we are the owners of the license because we're FFG's parent company. We're just going to have this studio that we own be the development arm now. It wasn't that simple.
There was
red tape to go through. Yeah, there was red tape to go through in the contract.
Bureaucracy.
And it took a while to get...
to untangle that.
Gotta have some sharp scissors.
And by that time, when Edge was prepared to start the job of reprinting the books that existed and developing new ones, the printers that they had been using, these books are now, a year and a half at least out of their work queue. And you can't just go in and say, hey, give us back our old slot in the queue. On top of which, something as simple as changing the FFG logo on the covers and the spine of the books,
it's still design process.
Well, and it also required reapproval by Lucasfilm. The approvals process had to start from step one again on all 30-ish books of the line.
And on top of the queue issue was the fact that also lots of large manufacturing was shut down due to quarantine, as well as large manufacturing and shipping was shut down again. So there's already massive queues.
And I know from Sam's Q&A at the 2023 Gamer Nation Con, 23? Yeah, 23. Gamer Nation Con, that they thought that they would have to get a new dice manufacturer. They thought that for some reason they wouldn't be able to use the same dice manufacturer. And so they would have to have new molds made of the dice and all of that. And as they were going through the process of finding a new dice manufacturer and seeing about getting new molds made and everything, they discovered, oh, we can use the old dice manufacturer. So that was a whole drama in and of itself. And that's why when the reprints started, the reprints were coming out in small trickles because they were getting back into the printing queue at the printer. So now they're basically at the point of being a new studio with the license fresh to develop new material.
And have
Now,
already
now
rolled
if
out
we
a
want
great
to,
deal of dice and other materials are
Yeah,
already.
it's exploded back onto the market.
yeah,
So
and
the
if we
nature is healing.
well, and if we want to get into the real weeds of the business side of things, during all of this, Asmodee was acquired by Embracer Group, which owns a bunch of pop culture IPs. And they also, at some point in there, started the process of spinning Asmodee back off as its own company, as well as another one of their studios as its own company. Of the three entities as a whole, Asmodee was the one that was performing the best. So Asmodee got saddled with the $920 million worth of debt that was
Of course they
set
did.
up in the process of spinning the two studios off into their own company. So Asmodee has that they had no choice but to take on. So if we look at Edge's output, there's not a lot of marketing going on. 99% of the marketing push is behind Arkham Horror, which is a great game.
Still need to play it, but great game.
Still need to play it, but it's a great game. And there is logic behind the idea that it is easier to produce new material for an IP that you or your parent company owns. Asmodee owns Arkham Horror.
Mm-hmm.
It does not
Uh,
own Star Wars.
it
No.
doesn't own Star Wars. It doesn't own Legend of the Five Rings.
And yet
That's a
Five
licensed IP.
Rings has a book that's coming out, hopefully, maybe.
But speaking to the
But less
marketing,
red tape.
the only
Less
reason I
tape.
know that new book is coming out, Robert, is because a player saw it at Edge's booth at GenCon and took a picture of it.
Even so, it's still good to know. Because we've been missing that Scorpion book.
But what my point is, they didn't announce it. A fan said, "Hey, look."
And that fan has all our thank yous.
The Genesis Twilight Imperium setting is another IP. It's another setting that Asmodee owns, Twilight Imperium. It's the Genesis setting that's gotten the most books. It got the most recent release, but that wasn't pushed. Meanwhile, in the 2 years since it has been released, not counting free RPG Day giveaways, not counting game material in the back of a comics miniseries, Arkham Horror is about to have its 8th and or ninth release in that 2 years. And it's getting a lot of promotional push. I don't begrudge them doing that. I wish that there was spotlight put on their other lines. I've got it's not in the stack behind me anymore. I've got the starter set of Dungeons and Kittens. Dungeons and Kittens is new, and they're not pushing that either. And it's adorable.
They most certainly do have a queue of priority RPGs.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's just because it's a new, fresh system and it's proven to be popular, so it's getting a big push because it's new, but it sure would be nice to see some push behind Star Wars. My understanding is that they have not abandoned development on Star Wars, that they are developing material, but the approvals process at Lucasfilm is so arcane that I've heard the story told uh, from GM Chris when he was interviewed on Nate's YouTube channel, Tabletop Empire, that he's friends with people who worked at Wizards when they originally had the Star Wars license previously. And they developed, completed, and were ready to publish their Force Unleashed source book in time to hit shelves at the same time as the video game so they could take advantage of some corporate synergy. Lucasfilm's approvals process is such that it was not approved and able to be released until 18 months after the video game hit shelves.
Can confirm.
So it's crazy. There's talk in the ether that there's a book that is just stalled in Lucasfilm approvals purgatory, and they can't say anything until Lucasfilm says you can say something.
So what we're saying is if we have to stage a heist.
Yes.
Sure, Nick, sure. Stage a heist to steal a book that hasn't been printed yet.
Yes. Can you steal an idea, Nick?
I believe there's
that's
a movie.
What IP lawyers are all about.
I believe there's a movie.
Get tangled with them, though.
I believe there's a movie about that. I think it has something to do with dreams or something.
I don't know.
Still haven't seen it.
That's us going on for 20 minutes about or mostly me rambling for 20 minutes about the brouhaha from GenCon and the state of Star Wars, which is what we're going to be spending more time talking about.
So now that we've talked about Star Wars, let's go talk about Dungeon Kittens. No, not really.
Yeah. Yes, the episode is about Dungeons and Kittens. Woo! But
fooled you.
Before we dive into today's topic, though, we would like to spotlight the flagship show of the D20 Radio Network, the Order 66 podcast.
Shocker,
if you're right, if you're a fan of the Star Wars role-playing game, it's one of the most influential and enduring RPG podcasts out there.
Well, the show is currently on an extended hiatus. Their back catalog is absolutely worth exploring. In particular, check out their Fractured Republic setting, which imagines the Star Wars galaxy more than a century after the Skywalker Saga and creates an entirely new era for GMs and players to tell their own stories.
Mm-hmm. And if you enjoyed today's discussion about making Star Wars your own, do yourself a favor and add the Order 66 podcast to your listening list. This show is packed with years of GM advice, campaign inspiration, and thoughtful conversations that are just as valuable today as they were when they were first released.
Yep, I had considered reaching out to GM Phil, the co-host of Order 66, to come on for this episode and join us because of their Fractured Republic setting. And then it occurred to me, oh yeah, GenCon.
Yeah, they're a little busy.
Phil is at GenCon because, well, Phil is also one of the founding members of Studio 404 that makes Genesis content on the Genesis Foundry. So Phil is there at GenCon repping Studio 404. So
yep.
I was like, I'm glad I didn't even send the DM.
He'd be like, Daryl, where do you think I am right now?
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? Maybe they could join us at the end of the year. They could join it.
Maybe.
They could return. They could return in. Maybe.
Wrong podcast, Nick.
Oh, you're right.
We don't do that bit here.
We don't do it. We don't.
Yeah, you just left me out. I have no idea what you're talking about.
We don't do that here.
we've got a running gag on Order 66. Order 66. We've got a running
It's our
gag.
podcast now.
We've got a running gag on Casual Nerdity where whatever we're talking about, we pick a character through it, and at some point, like if we were talking about if you were a character and what we were talking about, Robert, we would say, and Robert will return in Avengers Doomsday, with that slow piano Avengers theme from those first teasers underneath. Yeah, we are
Nice.
beating it to death. I am sure our listeners are tired of it, but you know us, we live and die by the bit.
Well, of course you do.
And our dream is to get as many people as possible to come on for that episode.
But last time it was Clone Trooper Kix will return in Avengers Doomsday. Our next episode, it's kind of the joke's not gonna land as well, because our next episode is going to be Spider-Man Brand New Day, where
and
whoever we pick, there is.
Well, we know Spider-Man is not going to appear. Will return in
Do we?
Secret Wars. At least that's what they've confirmed.
Do we?
Allegedly.
Well, I mean, he hasn't been announced, but do you think that they're not going to save some surprises? I'm not saying he will be, but do we really know?
Anyone truly
we don't know.
Exactly.
We're going to see the movie tomorrow. We're talking about Brand New Days, and I still have no idea what's going on in that movie.
Oh, I did. Somebody accidentally spoiled something. Sadie Sink is playing Uncle Ben.
I knew it.
Anyway,
snaps.
Anyway, let's get back on track. Let's start talking the Star Wars RPG. And since we're talking Star Wars RPG,
this is where the fun begins.
Yes.
So, Star Wars is a property that pretty much everyone has heard of, even if they haven't seen it. I do know people who haven't seen anything Star Wars. I used to work with somebody who has never seen a Star Wars. It's fine.
And you banished them to the outer darkness, I assume.
It hurt, but we can understand, and then we educate.
Yeah. I mean, not every piece of entertainment is for everyone. As I very frequently say, if we all liked the same things, the world would be a really boring place. So, here's the thing, though. When you're dealing with a known property like Star Wars, well, I mean, we've got 9 movies in the so-called Skywalker Saga. We've got 2 more movies. Right, we've got 2 more movies that take place in that timeline. We've got a bunch of TV shows that take place in that timeline. We've got a few metric tons of books and comics that take place.
A slightly smaller metric tons of video games.
Yeah. So when you're bringing an IP like that to your table, the main characters who accomplish the big things, the ones who defeat the Empire, are not your players' characters. So what can you do to make Star Wars specifically? Any IP, yes, but we are specifically focusing on Star Wars today. How do you make Star Wars your own so that your players are invested and not sitting there and in the back of their minds going, well, this is all pointless because we know that the movie characters are the big damn heroes.
And to assist with this task, I have created a list of points to explore from.
So, since you have made these points, why don't you kick us off, Nick?
Yes, take it away.
Point number 1. I call it from a certain point of view. Basically, you are. Let's say that we'll take a scene from the movies. The Battle of Hoth in The Empire Strikes Back.
Mhm.
Massive battle sequence. We know what the heroes are doing. Luke is flying in the airspeeder. Han and Leia are arguing. Chewie's trying to fix things up, and
Chewie's fixing that ship.
C-3PO led those stormtroopers into a Wampa room in the deleted scene.
Yes.
But there's a whole army of the rebellion here.
Yeah, I mean, the first transport is away.
A whole army of the rebellion, part of which is led by Cliff Clavin.
So, a simple solution would be you are rebellion soldiers, and you are here at the Battle of Hoth.
So you're talking about taking the spotlight and taking it off of the main characters and moving it about 100 feet to the left.
Yeah.
And seeing what's going on with those characters.
Which is
Yeah,
why
it's
I
like
call
main
this
heroes.
area a certain point of view.
Yes, because you gotta. I mean, the main characters get away, but who were the people that slowed the Empire down?
What is their story?
Yep.
How did they get here? Did they get off?
Were they
What
captured?
went on? What happened with the crew of that transport and its fighter escort?
What if there's a group of soldiers that didn't die by the Empire, but they're now stranded on Hoth with its bleak environment and Wampa predators?
There's all sorts of things that you can do there. I mean, famously, and I know that this kind of overlaps with one of your other points, famously, part of the Shadows of the Empire video game did exactly this because its main character, Dash Rendar, was at the Battle of Hoth.
Oh, half
And we
the
followed
appeal
him.
of both the original and the rebooted Battlefront games is like you get to take the part of an average soldier on the battlefield. People want to be part of these big events, but also recognize I can't be the big hero. We
Well,
all
like
can't
the
be the
old
big hero.
Battlefront 2 game had an entire campaign of what if you're just the 501st Legion going from Republic to Empire?
Yeah.
Like,
or heck, from a certain point of view, Rogue One is just a certain point of view movie.
it is.
Yeah.
Based off of
Like,
one
how
line.
How do they get the Death Star plans?
It's literally based off of the first sentence of the first movie's opening crawl. The rebels have run a major victory and it's stolen the plans to the Empire's battle station, the Death Star. That's the whole movie about that.
Yeah. Only now do we know that Rogue One was a strategic victory, but a very costly victory.
Yeah, and in fact, that idea of taking it from those opening sentences of the crawl was the focus of the first teaser for the movie. It started with the crawl, and which then got video distortion, and then went into clips from the movie. Which that was just absolute brilliance. It highlighted those words and then went into distortion. It brilliant. I loved it.
Yes. Or if being a soldier may not be as exciting as you think, what about episode 4 when they go to the Tatooine cantina? There are a ton of aliens and ne'er-do-wells in there. What's Devil Horn's story? What about that fur guy? What about the guy that has Death Mark in like 13 systems?
There was a whole book about that.
Exactly.
But there are stories to be told and places where your characters could thrust shoulders and be like, I'm not the main character, but you could, and it also leads to the fun like cameo moment. It's like, like speaking on that cantina example, you could have like a regular meeting of ne'er-do-wells. It gets interrupted by someone cutting off a dude's arm, and it suddenly becomes a different arm in the next scene.
Yeah, you're just gonna. What was that guy's problem?
Yeah,
and he just says, back to your
exactly.
drinks. And it's like, back to your drinks.
And part of why I'm sure you chose this title for this bullet point, Nick, is they've released 3 books in the new canon with that title from a certain point of view, where that's exactly the point of it, that you are looking at the background characters in all of the original 3 movies and you're exploring their stories. So
Yeah,
it
it
can be
allows
done.
you.
If they can do it in fiction, you can do it in an RPG.
If Justice with
Certainly can do
ease,
it in an RPG.
and again, it just requires again, the scenes that we just discussed have been made into memes, made into parodies. Like, it's probably the easiest way to do it with giving like that little bit of fan service to those that would recognize it, and still enough for people to be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I know what you're talking about."
There's
it's
just enough for them to be the Leo meme.
Yeah,
And it's just gone further from there. We got the movies, we got the shows, we got the video games. You can even do the books if you're that ambitious.
but again, it
You
depends on
sure
your
can.
audience.
Put a
But
pin in that.
yep, but it's ambitious. But it's like, it's definitely what I felt was like the best way to explain like the most simple and surface level. You're passing. It's not a crossover. It's a pass through.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's fun to be like, no, I'm not going to be the guy that fights Darth Vader. I'm going to be the guy on the ship trying to not get shot down by all the TIE fighters and the Death Star cannons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a dozen ships that came out of that. It's like, you're one of those guys.
I'm the A-Wing pilot that rams to the Executor's Bridge.
They did that one. They did that one in From a Certain Point of View, Return of the Jedi.
But
maybe next time.
that is the simplest version. The next one is definitely requires a bit more knowledge, but also gives them more freedom. Eras. Star Wars takes place over multiple eras.
Yes.
Yes, and
I
here's
remember
where
when I was little, there was a Star Wars book that had a timeline. They literally just gave you the timeline.
Well, and here's where I'm going to pull that pin out because I've already been working towards this I've been trying to work on some homebrew source books for the High Republic Publishing Initiatives era.
Yes.
It's an era of Star Wars that's set, 200 to 300 years before the Skywalker Saga. And the novels give us enough of a framework to work with that period of time that you can take that, and there's plenty of room around the stories that are taking place in those novels to build games. If you're looking at phase 2, which is the furthest back in that, because they did the same thing that the movie trilogies did, in that the middle part, like the prequel trilogy, is set before the first and third parts. But with that, the Republic is still exploring the Outer Rim. They're still mapping hyperspace routes. A lot of that territory, it's not undiscovered, but it's largely unfamiliar to the Republic. So
what's old
you
is
can
new, and what's new
Kind of
is
a Wild West kind of thing.
exactly like a Wild West kind of thing.
mixed with
One
a
of the
bit of
characters
like
that shows up
marauding
in phase,
barbarians. Yeah.
one of the characters that shows up in phase 2 is the marshal of a not really a desert planet, but it's more of a Wild Westy kind of environment.
They didn't put a desert planet in Star Wars?
Oh, they did.
Okay.
Oh, they did.
You almost scared
But
me
they-
there, Daryl.
But they went out of their way to not make the planet that she was on a stereotypical Star Wars desert planet for that reason.
Respect, then.
Respect.
It was arid, it was Old Westy, it was desert adjacent,
It was
but it
kind of
was
more
not,
like
Tatooine.
it was kind of more like Oklahoma, Colorado
Yeah.
vibe.
Yeah.
Fair.
So you could do that. You could be hyperspace prospectors. You could get involved in the storyline that was happening then, because there was a religious cult that they weren't anti-force. They were anti-use of the force. They respected and worshipped the force, but they felt that people who used it, like the Jedi, were basically wasting a finite resource. Or not so much wasting a finite resource, but if you as a Jedi use the force to lift a rock out of the way of a cave that somebody is trapped in, that takes that much force away from another location where somebody else might be in need.
So kind of a desecration balance thing.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
And so you could play with those concepts, especially if you want to be Jedi. If any of your players are Jedi, they don't have to be involved in the main storyline involving the path, which is the name of the cult.
Yeah.
But they can run into practitioners and followers of the path. That same phase 2 also took a look at Jeddah during this time period, where Jeddah was where a bunch of different force focused religions all had a convocation set up on Jeddah so that they could all confer and share resources and debate and things like that. So
there's a meeting of minds of different philosophy.
Yeah. And it introduced half a dozen different force traditions in that convocation. So it opens up a lot that you could play with just by having the setting. Then if you're in phases 1 and 3, you have a conflict going on in the galaxy where basically a group of bikers, whose leader has a mad on for the Jedi, make a run to try to knock out the Republic and maybe even take over part of the galaxy. And in phase 3, they actually do take control of part of the Outer Rim, and using a large scale interdiction field, they cut off that part of the galaxy from the Republic.
Mm-hmm.
So you could be somebody who's trapped behind the storm wall. You could be somebody who's trying to get through the storm wall. You can do all of that and still not necessarily be involved in the Republic and Jedi versus the Nile storyline.
And that's just one.
Yeah. That's one era.
One era.
Star Wars has got plenty. You could go all the way back to the Infinite Empire era. You could go to the Great Hyperspace War. You could go to the Sith Wars. You could be the Jedi Civil War with Revan and Malak.
The Old Republic.
The Old Republic. The Great War. The Cold War. The Second Great War. All that MMO stuff. Definitely got a lot there.
The time around the Phantom Menace. That's good 2.5 decades there. The Clone Wars.
The 100-Year Darkness.
Well, technically, the Clone Wars is part of the Skywalker Saga.
That's part of this certain point of view, Nick.
Yeah. But again, there's multiple eras to mine from that you can plant your characters in, and again, don't have to touch the main stories of these other characters. It's a certain point of view, but bigger. It's no longer like you're going to cross through and it's like, oh, as you said, the Leo meme. It's like you don't have to. The galaxy is that large and vast. It's just be like, oh, I recognize that Star Spider. It's like, oh, I want to know about that stuff.
Yeah, because the thing about the Star Wars galaxy is if you actually look at a map, it is literally a galaxy. It is huge. And if you actually track the actual movie line, the movie storyline, the Skywalker Saga, they don't touch that many planets.
Yeah. Most of the planets on that map are coming from all of this ancillary media that we're talking about pulling from.
Exactly. And sometimes that gives you creative freedom. You see a planet on there, no one's ever, they've never actually explained what's on there. You could make something. I've done that. I've taken a world and be like, this is an agro world now. It's has this many species. This is what they're fighting over. This is what it uses to export and import. And I'm like a story there.
Same.
Yep.
Like sometimes there's just like it has literally just like 2 lines and where it is in the galaxy. Well, it's involved in this area of time. There's apparently a battle here that no one talked about, and that's all it's mentioned. So it has to
Or
have something going on here.
Literally half of the map is called the unknown regions. That's basically Star Wars saying, make whatever you want.
It can be literally anything.
Yes and no.
To a degree.
To a degree. You can definitely be like, okay, in this part is a planet that does this.
Because we do have some material in canon for the unknown regions in the form of Timothy Zahn's both the what I still always pull a DC Comics here in the pre-crisis and post-crisis continuities. In both Legends and current canon, there has been exploration of the Chiss ascendancy and some surrounding areas in the unknown regions.
Which is a good pivot point.
But if you've looked at the map, it's like maybe 3 or 4 planets.
Even in adding in that
out
stuff,
most of that stuff.
There's tons still left. But that's a good pivot point into my next bullet point. Legends.
Yes.
Yes.
What has now been considered not what happened in a certain point of view.
Yes. But the idea is that you can always though those stories are not considered canon, one, they're still being reprinted because money.
They're fun.
And two, a lot of the people that are now currently working in Star Wars, just like us, grew up with Legends to a degree, grew up with that material, and are slowly bringing in parts or taking inspiration from. So you can do the same. Dig into any of those old books.
I have done the same.
Yes,
all 3 of us have.
Yes, but in my first ever campaign I ran, Ashes of an Empire, I took a Legends era, the Warlord era after Palpatine's death, where after he died, ambitious Imperial officers and governors and moffs basically split up and formed their own little fiefdoms everywhere. And it fractured the Empire and gave the New Republic a foothold to start building up, taking over, and getting into the core worlds. Well, I took that premise and be like, well, what if those officers were actually competent in some areas? And it dragged on. So now there's the official Empire, there's the New Republic, but then there's this warlord here, this warlord there, this warlord there. What would happen if you are just a group of people having to traverse that chaotic time?
Caught in the middle of a conflict that is much larger than you know.
And the little time we played it, it kind of worked. They worked for the New Republic a few times. They actually worked for one of the warlords. And they kind of liked working for one of the warlords, or at least the second in command. And I was like, okay, let's do it.
Again, stuff like that, like as we mentioned, there's tons of stuff about other eras. There's other parts of eras. There's even something. There's tons of material to mine from, so that you can, and a lot of it also has a lot of like RPG support as well.
Yes, I've certainly seen some of your books on it, Nick, because they've explored the Warlord era. They've explored what happened after the New Republic was formed. They even had the Yuuzhan Vong era. I saw a book about that. That would be fun. And I know, Daryl, you've even contemplated, what if the Yuuzhan Vong came during the Clone Wars type of idea.
That's been a talk that was even talked about even with the Clone Wars team. They were wanting to introduce something like that.
Yeah, they weren't going to have them invade. They were going to have a one-off episode where a group of I don't know if it was supposed to be Anakin and Obi-Wan or just a group of clone troopers were going to encounter some Yuuzhan Vong scouts.
And that would be an experience.
Yep. Like, again, mixing and matching like different ideas and concepts is also fun. Like, there's been there's things like the Project Deathwing and the Death Troopers is a concept that
Daryl's actually played with.
Yep.
Yeah. I've used them.
There are ways to make it, to bring in these unique ideas that Legends, because again, Legends lasted several decades and just tons of material to mine from.
Yes, sorry. Like Nick said, leading up to the Phantom Menace, that's an era all of itself. Corporate exploitation, the Stark Hyperspace War, all of that.
Yeah, I have in the past made liberal use of plucking a character here and a character there from Legends and dropping them into the current continuity, adapting them to it. As like, I don't think I will ever, even if she never shows up in a game, I will never run a timeline that Lumaya does not exist in, because she's a cool character.
She is.
Or I kind of got fixed on the Warlord Era. I wouldn't run that without Zinj. Love Zinj.
And the Warlord Era has made a quiet return to the canon.
A little bit through The Mandalorian, though I want my boy Zinj back.
Robert, have you seen Mando and Grogu yet?
No.
It opens with Mando going after a warlord.
Really fun storyline there.
It opens with him going after a warlord, and Sigourney Weaver's New Republic general has the old bit that post World War II, the intelligence agencies created a deck of cards with the most wanted.
Yeah, the deck of 52.
Yeah, she's got one.
Oh, I like that.
She's got one for the Imperials that the New Republic is trying to get, and one of Mando's lines is, "I'll bring in every card in your deck."
Nice.
It's a fun thing, but it's like, it's just as you guys are saying. I will always bring in Dirge, and one day I will have someone do the fun jousting bit.
I mean, Nick, Dirge is canon again.
I know.
Dirge is canon again. So,
and I will have the dumb speeder jousting bit happen.
No, because we know you want the jousting bit.
I know.
Nick was very, very mad at me he was adapting that Clone Wars micro series for us in a Clone Wars campaign we were playing, and my Jedi was it basically in Obi-Wan's shoes from that opening arc, and he was setting up the joust, and I refused. Not because I was trying to spite Nick, but my character was basic. Not at first. I wasn't doing it to spite Nick at first.
I'll agree with that.
It was just how my character was reacting to Dirge. Like, no, that's stupid. Why would I do that?
I'm not going to fight the invincible Gendai.
And the more he kept acting in character and refusing it, the more agitated Nick got about it. And I was like, oh, well, I can also just push Nick's buttons this way.
And my buttons were pushed.
So, yeah. But that's another way that you can do things. Thinking of it, like that Clone Wars micro series is no longer considered to be part of canon. You can take one of those Legends stories like that, and since they're not part of the current canon anymore, you can slot your PCs into those stories. I mean, it helps with a lot of plotting because it's already been.
Or I'm gonna date myself with this. A game I grew up on was Jedi Outcast 2, where you play Kyle Katarn fighting against Dasan and is reborn. I always found the reborn to be a cool concept. Artificially giving someone the Force. That's a cool concept.
You did that, Robert, in my Raiders of the Lost Jedi campaign. I'm blanking on the name of the planet that Dark Forces 2 Jedi Knight, the big climax took place on
Rasan.
with Kyle
the Valley of the
Katarn
Jedi
versus Jarek.
Jarek.
And I had one of the player characters, because it was kind of ambiguous what happened to Jarek at the end of the fight, right?
Kind of like dissipated.
Yeah. So my player characters, the campaign was set in the future. They were working for the University of New Alderaan, looking for Jedi artifacts and Force-related things. It was, 150-ish years later. They went to Rusan, and one of the players found a portal to the world between worlds.
Nice.
And when he went into the world between worlds, he found Jarek.
Oh, that's cool.
And Jarek came out of the portal. And he was the big bad of the session.
Oh, nice. That's cool. That's actually pretty slick.
That's pretty cool. I like that. I like that a lot. Heck, the world between worlds gives all the possibilities.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like, what if some idiot brings back Bane during the Clone Wars?
Like there's and we can touch on that. But speaking on your nature of your Raiders of the Lost Jedi campaign, next bullet point is sequels and legacy.
Yes.
Yes.
This is where we go off to the very end of the Skywalker Saga.
Yes.
He's not Skywalker. But anyway.
Well, I brought it. That's why I put it in both. It's like there are two schools of thought. There's the sequel trilogy, and then there's legacy, which are both different ways of both canon and legends of looking past the furthest edge of the Skywalker Saga.
Yes.
So before we dive in really quick to what we've done, this is going back to our cross promotion of Order 66 podcast.
Yes, they've done this.
Chris and Phil's Fractured Republic is set, I want to say it's 250 years after the sequel trilogy. Yes. And as the title would imply, the galaxy didn't reunify primarily under a single republic anymore. There is a republic, but its size and influence is small, and there are about 7 other controlling factions in the galaxy, each with their own territory.
Yeah, and it makes sense. Some people may be kind of sick of a centralized galactic government.
After it rose and fell and rose and fell again.
And they were in the process, in their most recent episode, which has been a while, of spotlighting each of the different factions. I should have pulled up the notes on them so I could go over them all. I'm doing this by memory.
Your memory's pretty good, though.
It's been a while since I've listened to the episodes, too. One of the factions is the Hutts.
Fair.
And the Hutts are basically running on pure capitalism. In
the
fact,
Hutts never die.
One of the factions are, and I can't remember the name of their government, is the Mandalorians. And the Mandalorians are basically like, we are basically a search and rescue civilization. There may
That's
be
interesting.
Mandalorian Jedi, but they are more Mandalorian than Jedi. And there are Jedi, but the Jedi are not tied solely to the Republic. Um, there is there's basically a space Russia. I can't remember the name of that faction. And there's a whole the different factions have different alliances and relationships with one another. And
Obviously,
then they
a ton of factions.
have basically a League of Nations among them all.
Do you remember if one of the governments is a monarchy?
I don't remember.
I think there was one, but I can't recall.
I feel like that would have to be one of them. It's like, eight different powers. There's got to be like at least one monarchy.
A classical monarchy has to be in there.
And
or an absolute. You never know.
Yeah.
There is kind of a UN security force, the Galactic Rangers, but the Rangers don't have jurisdiction in all of the factions.
Oh, wow. What does that sound like?
Yeah.
And so they have the structure of their Jedi Order that they're using. Jedi will frequently, as Padawans or sometimes Knights, be members of or consultants to the Rangers, because of course you're obviously going to have somebody who wants to play a Jedi, but if you're running a Rangers heavy campaign, you need a reason to get in there. And in fact, Nick, I told Phil once at Gamer Nation Con that I screamed at my radio listening to the episode where he brought this up, because damn him for making me like a usage of this term. But the uniform jackets of the Rangers are gray. And so the Jedi that work with them wear gray outer robes. And so he's like, so they're gray Jedi. That's what people call them. They call the Rangers, or they call the Jedi that work with the Rangers, gray Jedi.
I like that because in universe that makes sense, and it's probably the only time I'd ever no time to get into that, but I've always been like,
oh yeah, that was
get out of
my
here
reaction when I heard it.
Get out of here if you're a great Jedi nonsense. But that sounds fun as an in-universe way of acknowledging that, especially if the Jedi are like, that's not a thing. That's not a thing. We're working.
And my last word on their Fractured Republic setting before saying, again, go listen to the episodes, because it's a great idea and a great setting that they have put a lot of work into, is at Gamer Nation Con, I got to play in a game that Phil ran that was set in the Fractured Republic.
Oh, nice.
And it was at this last Gamer Nation Con, so it was X-Files themed story-wise, even though it was Star Wars The Fractured Republic. There were, I think the pre-gen characters, I believe there were 2 Rangers, 2 Jedi, and 2 operatives who were basically Mulder and Scully. And all ended up on this planet where something funky was going on, and they were all investigating it. And it was a lot of fun, even though the Fractured Republic setting didn't, all of the lore and everything that they've developed for Fractured Republic didn't weigh heavily on the game. It was so much fun because you weren't being necessarily a traditional Jedi, because their premise, their jumping off point for the Jedi was, since they're working with current canon, after the events of the sequel trilogy, Rey agreed with Luke that the Jedi had become too dogmatic and needed to be, their scope and philosophies needed to be broadened a little bit. And we're talking 250 years down the line after that decision. So it's not your traditional prequel style stick up their butt Jedi. So
and again,
it's
that's
a lot
sort
of
of the
fun.
fun. Again, that's sort of the fun of exploring beyond what we know.
And as Daryl's talked about the Fractured Republic of the Order 66 podcast, Nick and I have done our own kind of legacy campaign world building through our own campaign, Legacy of the Force, about 9 years after the Battle of Exegol. And the Republic exists as technically a galactic government, but we basically made it the original 13 colonies before the actual Constitution was made. So it's basically an Articles of Confederation, to where it has a very weak central power, and there's a lot more power given to the individual planets that make up the place. So
You
much
know,
so,
and there are
just as
plenty
an
that have
aside,
decided not to join with this.
yes, and people
reforming of the
can just
Republic.
not join.
yeah. Just as an aside, you said original 13 colonies, and I'm in such a science fiction head since we're talking about Star Trek or Star Wars that I immediately thought Battlestar Galactica.
Oh yeah.
But yes, but basically the Senate is basically there's sectors, and then there's of course the clusters in the sectors. So there's one senator, but also one representative. And sometimes the representative is the person who ran against the senator. So there's two competing voices for the same place around there. And there's, of course, a chancellor. And kind of going off what Daryl said about Rey, the Fractured Republic, in our version, Rey didn't train anybody. She really did go, I'm going to be the last Jedi, and just go off on her own and say, I'm not training anybody. And I'm not even a Jedi. I'm just a person.
No order, no plan, which in this case Finn felt as
kind of had
his
their
own
own
path.
fracture, but more of a okay fracture.
Yes.
To where Finn took his ideology to be they have to protect the Republic, and instead created we call it a Jedi, but it's basically a Force order that basically answers to the Chancellor. They're the Chancellor's guard, and they are just Force users with lightsabers that fight for the Republic, more as a military unit rather than a philosophical Force society.
Yeah. It's meant to reflect that, yes, this is sort of a new schism, but it's also to reflect an idea of like where the galaxy would be thinking in a post. Oh wow, not just like this is where the full galaxy goes. Oh no, Palpatine wasn't just an evil old guy. He was a dark wizard who basically could destroy everything.
And in our session, the Empire and First Order have basically been reduced to nothing. The New Republic doesn't even consider them a military anymore. They're more just kind of on the same range of pirates. That's as best as they can get. Nuisances. But in that way that they've kind of pushed them off to the side, that gives certain other people opportunities, which we spend
Power
on.
appears a vacuum, and not to.
We're not going to spoil anything, since said player is right here.
But things are and without spoiling, you could definitely see that we are taking things in a very unique perspective in relation to how the threat is.
Yeah, and in the opening, we kind of did what the High Republic is doing. We had them start as navigators and mappers, because the New Republic was like, for once we have peace. Let's go back to mapping the unknown regions again.
Well, and similarly, we mentioned my Raiders of the Lost Jedi campaign a little earlier. I was crazily on a lot of the same pages that Chris and Phil were years before they started working on Fractured Republic. But I was about 150 years after the sequels. There was not a republic. There was a galactic alliance. And it was smaller than the republic. And just like they had with theirs and you have with yours, worlds and sectors could join or not join if they didn't want to. The big difference between both the Fractured Republic setting and yours is there was a recognized area of space that I called the Imperial Commonwealth, that it was the people who wanted the publicly stated ideals of the Empire without all of the fascism and dictatorship and oppression,
slavery, death weapons.
And I pulled in elements from Legends. I pulled in the Imperial Knights from the Star Wars Legacy comic.
And again, so that's why I named
just because
this
they're
bullet
cool.
point sequel and Legacy, because in Legends they went as far as like 130 years post the Battle of Yavin, but both are like, and currently Star Wars, especially starting next year, we're getting we've started to get our first couple books post Episode 9. And we're going to get our first movie post Episode 9 next year with Starfighter.
And what I was doing in setting in Raiders of the Lost Jedi is it had kind of a Star Trek-y feel in that they were doing exploration type things, but the players could be Jedi. The players could be they were hired by that university to go out on this. So there was an archaeologist, and there was I don't remember if it was a hired gun, a bounty hunter. There was a shooty protector type guy, because you're going to run into problems because they're looking for Jedi and Force related things. There was 2 or 3 Jedi on the team, but they were all flavored differently. And I was also able to then use that to, since given the goal of what they were looking for, I was able to pull things from canon and legends that had maybe been referenced or mentioned. Like in the second session, they ran into the Mirror Talisman from the comics. And you know what? It attached itself to one of the Jedi, and she liked it. She kept it. She kept the talisman. So there was constantly an internal conflict for her for the talisman, because I had statted everything out, all the consequences of it. There were consequences to her keeping it, and they continued with every session. Had Episode 9 come out before the campaign sputtered out because it faced the big bad of scheduling, I would have had them find Luke and Leia's sabers on Tatooine.
Oh, that would have been sick, yeah.
Let me dig this random patch of sand. What is this?
Well, no, it would have been a force. So
I know, I'm just joking.
What one of their 2 quest givers, and this is before Ahsoka, one of the 2 quest givers, for want of a better term, who would send them out on their assignments, was Huyang.
Oh, great choice.
And he was working, since David Tennant voiced Huyang, he was working with a professor at the university, Professor Medig Siethri, who, and this is before Rebels got to this point, I cast Tom Baker as Professor Medig Siethri, which I don't remember what language I used. Medig Siethri translates to Dr. 4. since he was the fourth Doctor.
Nice.
Yes, but we're saying sequels and legacy give you a good starting point with their end point, and you can basically go from there, make what you will, but you at least have a structure
It
to
allows you
begin
to
with.
work with the most of the universe,
Yeah,
but
you
also
could.
gives you the freedom of going forward.
Yeah, you could do the Fractured Republic. You could do something like Legacy of the Force. You could do a whole Star Wars Call of Cthulhu type of thing and bring in Abeloth. You could do
Of
whatever
course.
you want.
Yeah.
Basically,
One of the things that I
you're not limited because there's nothing yet that has stopped it.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. One of the things I like about working with a time frame after the movies is for those who are even remotely concerned about this kind of thing, you don't have to worry about stepping on the canon.
You can be the big damn heroes because guess what? There are no big damn heroes for this story. It's your
Yeah.
story.
Exactly. Speaking of cannons, let's get our big old sledgehammers out because it's time to break it.
Yes.
Now this is where this may sound paradoxical, but like sometimes canon, and this will offend every single Star Wars fan out there, but sometimes canon just doesn't work for your story.
Not with what you want to go with.
Yeah.
Maybe the Empire does blow up Yavin 4 before Luke can get to it. Maybe during the Clone Wars, Dooku starts believing his own hype and stops working with Sidious and just runs the Confederacy like a legitimate opposition government.
Maybe your starship gets caught in a black hole and time dilated to a different era.
Yes.
And then you spend 8 years on a space station.
Yes.
That's canon breaking is definitely what would seem like the least likely option, but it is an option worth exploring.
It
Heck,
is an
some
option
video
worth
games
exploring.
have gone into that canon breaking. It's like, what if the Force Unleashed? What if Starkiller does kill Vader and becomes Palpatine's new apprentice?
What if
Yeah,
we got a Force Unleashed 3?
So here's the thing about breaking canon, and it's just a general caveat in that if you're playing in an existing licensed setting like Star Wars, there's usually a reason why.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Because you like the setting and the stories. So when you break the canon, you have to be careful not to also break the setting.
Yes.
You have to be careful not to break it in a way that removes the thing that makes it Star Wars.
Yes, you can break the timeline or the chronology, but you probably shouldn't break the established rules of the setting.
Yeah. There are again, it's definitely wouldn't be my first pick. If I had to scale my bullet points and what we discussed from easiest to the most difficult, breaking established parts of timeline and even some bending some rules of of the of the setting requires you to know the setting enough to be like, okay, I'm going to bend and break here, but here's where I can't move.
Now, there are ways to go about it. Probably the best way is what we've already been talking about. What if? And taking an existing branch point. And Star Wars itself did that back in the Legends continuity with their Infinities comics through Dark Horse. And by virtue of that, while it was never branded Infinities, the Star Wars Tales anthology comic that they released, it was all pretty much non-canon Infinities
Did some
stuff.
things like that they just wanted to do, but they never said like this could be, and some of it isn't.
There's another way to go about that too. And you can look at official Star Wars material for inspiration. Look at the 3 seasons so far, and hopefully counting, of Visions.
Yes.
A lot of those are very clearly
not canon.
Yeah, not the main timeline.
But they take all the feels. They take what they want and recontextualize. It's better, even also the Lego Star Wars specials.
Yes.
The fun ones.
Yes.
Yeah. In a similar vein, take the parts, the pieces of what we love about Star Wars and mixes it up. It's still Star Wars. It's fundamentally still has the feel of Star Wars. But it's not your average Star Wars.
Yeah, like radical change and canon breaking is, you two mentioned it earlier, my idea for taking a Clone Wars campaign and having the Yuuzhan Vong invade. Which I really want to play that, but now anytime I announce a Clone Wars campaign, because I would pull a bait and switch.
Obviously.
I make no pretense about that. I would pull a bait and switch. I would float a Clone Wars campaign. I would say up front, hey, events may happen that diverge from the Star Wars canon. So be prepared just in case that happens. I would run pretty standard Clone Wars stuff for the first few sessions and then slowly start peppering in the Vong invasion. Now, I can't run it for all of you guys, because if I announce a Clone Wars campaign, you're going to be waiting for it.
We promise to be surprised.
Hey,
it's too late.
A good surprise. And this would be good for like another episode, but a good surprise and twist doesn't mean you don't know there's a twist. It's all in. It's just like a joke. It's all in the setup.
Yes.
I mean, Nick, M. Night Shyamalan has made an entire career out of movies that you say, oh, it's a Shyamalan, there's a twist.
What a twist.
Exactly.
Or heck, in our Legacy of the Force campaign, we had that kind of twist, and you, Daryl, said, okay, either this is going to happen or this is going to happen. But you still like that it happened.
Again, it's not like that. I feel that could be a whole episode on about twists, but it's like,
yeah, when or when not to.
It's all
we have it
all in the build up
on our ideas sheet, Nick.
It's all in the build up.
But Daryl, can you get M. Night Shyamalan?
No. Would you? Okay, you know what? I like most of his catalog. Would you want M. Night Shyamalan Star Wars?
I meant more as a consultant on twists, not on Star Wars.
What is the one time that he has worked on a licensed IP?
Don't mention or touch my avatar.
So, just
there was
saying.
one good thing that came out of that movie. That's it.
I'm just saying. But yeah, it's fun. There's also, it doesn't even necessarily have to be a radical change. I was talking about this the last time I was on Me and Steve Talk RPGs. In the first Star Wars campaign that I was ever part of, and several of us GM'd, I had that same thought that we were talking about. Our players or our characters aren't going to be the ones to bring down the Empire. But for some of the games that I run, how can I give them big, grand Star Wars level victories? And partly I came up with a large scale weapon that the Empire was using. So there's your standard Rebels versus Empire. here's something big that we can ultimately take out. But I also introduced a new faction in the galaxy. I totally ripped off some ideas from Jim Star and the name from Jim Starlin's Dreadstar comic, in that I introduced the Holy Church of the Instrumentality.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that.
They were a religion that they weren't quite Yuuzhan Vong level about it. They did not mind technology, but they felt that artificial intelligence like droids and such were an affront to the Force because they mimic life. And their leader was a Force sensitive who was also the primary figure, traditionally the primary figure in their religion. And they had a pretty large segment of space that they basically said, hey, Republic or Empire in this case, you do your thing. We're going to stay over here. We're going to do our thing. But he was basically sitting back, watching the Galactic Civil War and waiting for it to end, knowing that whoever wins and takes charge, be it the rebellion restoring the Republic or be it the Empire, their resources are going to be stretched thin by this civil war. They're going to be tired. They're going to have depleted resources. And that's when we start our crusade.
Mm-hmm.
And so there would occasionally be sessions where they were fighting against things with the Holy Church of the Instrumentality. So you can create it, and it doesn't have to be that specific kind of faction. You can create a large, powerful faction that's sitting out there in the galaxy, biding its time to take over.
Oh,
You can set it in continuity. Go ahead, Nick.
Taking from the Empire at War games, the Zon Consortium, massive criminal underworld
Yeah,
most militaristic one.
Yeah,
yeah, and pizza delivery
and pizza delivery. That's
so,
it's
little tibers
built on little tibers.
But yeah, you can make that change and break canon without breaking canon, if that makes sense.
Again, it usually relies on, and again, if I had to scale these talking points, usually it's that old rule of thumb. If you're gonna break rules, you gotta know the rules.
Yes,
Well,
we're not gonna tell you what to run.
Yeah,
right.
We would recommend not starting your first ever campaign with a canon breaking setting.
Now, as we've been talking about all of these different categories, I've noticed something.
Mm-hmm.
Most successful games that make Star Wars their own pepper in a little bit from more than one of these categories.
Very true.
Yes.
Like what I was just talking about with the instrumentality. It's a little bit of radical change, canon breaking, and it's a lot of certain point of view. It's like one part breaking canon to 2 parts certain point of view.
Going back to Ian Roberts, it's 1 part sort of legacy and sequel, but also a good halfway bit of lessons.
Yeah. So, mix and match what works for your table, but remember too, all at the same time, kind of like I was touching on just a bit ago, you're playing Star Wars for a reason.
It's usually
you're playing Star Wars as opposed to Twilight Imperium or Dune or what have you for a reason.
And likely that's what your players are there for as well. They're looking for a Star Wars vibe, be it either just it's familiar to them or they want something more grounded in the Star Wars universe. either way,
Yeah.
it should if they're coming for your table for a Star Wars game, always remember that you got to put that in the forefront of what the Star Wars means to you, and more specifically, what your players are coming for.
Oh, I just had another idea of canon breaking, Nick. Remember when Dark Horse published that comic based on Lucas's original script, The Star
Oh,
Wars?
oh yeah, that too. That was cool.
You could set it in that,
Yeah.
which
What we're
is
saying
its
is
whole different beast.
What we're saying is the joy of Star Wars is that it is so big, so comprehensive, with everyone just contributing to it, that there is no end to what you can do in it.
You know what else you can do in Star Wars? You can create a species of anthropomorphic.
Squirrel! Squirrel!
They have already made anthropomorphic teddy bears, so
And
that's not.
anthropomorphic rabbits.
And hamsters.
Mm-hmm.
And weasels. So, no, that's not far off.
No.
I'd imagine that any reasonable sense they'd probably be evil. I could imagine the Sith would have.
No, they would be unbeatable, Nick. They would be unbeatable because Marvel has shown us this. The squirrel will come in and then
Finish him!
You know, there might be one already.
No.
Oh. What
There's something called a Chikari that is basically almost a fictional sapient squirrel-like alien species.
Let's see.
It's Chikari, and they're on Wikipedia.
Hang on, spell that for me again.
Chikari.
Thank you. My browser was not wanting to cooperate at first and take
In
any
fact,
typing.
This is one of their character concepts.
No. I see. Oh,
Yeah.
No. Do not want!
Hey, Nick, can I play that species in our next Star Wars game?
Do not want! Ah!
What, you don't want him? His name's Placo.
Robert?
Yes.
I will stat those out as a playable species.
You're the best, Daryl.
Just remind me.
My eye.
Well,
I think we have sufficiently traumatized Nick.
Star Wars has traumatized Nick.
Star Wars has betrayed me again for like the millionth time.
I guess it's time now, since before Nick loses the capacity to speak for his portion of this, for me to say, head over to howwerollgaming.com, your central hub for everything How We Roll Gaming. You'll find details on our current campaigns, our full podcast archive, plus quick links to our merch store and all our social channels so you can stay connected wherever you hang out online.
Yes, and if you look,
Placo? No!
And if you're looking to support the show directly, the best way is through Patreon at patreon.com/howwerollgaming. We've got membership tiers starting at just $2 a month, with perks ranging from special recognition in our Discord community to on-air credits and exclusive discounts in the merch store. And while you're supporting us, you can also help the show at no extra cost by using our drive-thru RPG affiliate link when picking up your next tabletop goodies.
And finally, we want to hear from you. Got questions you want us to tackle? Like why? Please, why? Topics you'd love to see on the show, or a legendary RPG glory story of your own to share. Drop us a line at any time at podcasts@howwerollgaming.com. We read everything you miss. I just end up in this.
We'll make priorities for any Chikari stories.
Yes, I was about to say, if you are a particular fan of the Chikari, please let us know so that we can read that email on the air. But remember The galaxy doesn't need another Luke Skywalker. It needs your characters, especially if they're Chikari. So, until next time, I'm Daryl.
I'm in pain, and also Nick.
And I'm Robert.
And this is how we roll.